Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vox Podcast. We are so glad you're tuning in today. Michael, Erre, and Timothy John Stafford here. We are grateful that we get to play a small part in your life. And we want to thank, before we even get started, we want to thank Alan and Gina for joining our team on Patreon. Patreon.com, Vox Podcast with Mike Erre. New name coming. We're now looking at logos and color palettes and designs and websites, and it's all very exciting. There are probably dozens of people eager to hear the new name. So we'll
dozens
keep you.
Might be a stretch.
We'll keep you posted. So, what we want to do today. We didn't get any good and juicy reviews, did we, last week?
No, well, I think we got like some nice ones.
Oh yeah, we never want to read those. Never.
We don't want to encourage the niceties.
Yeah. So we're just going to dive straight into the sermon. We're just going to go because this one.
You don't want to banter?
This one.
You don't want to talk about water?
Why are you? Yeah, you got some rain out in California, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, that's all anyone can talk about in California when it rains because it's like.
I remember.
Surprise.
Oh, I remember. Oh, yes. It's this thing called weather. I know.
Yeah.
And I always loved that the place in the country that has the least interesting weather has HD Doppler 7000 mega. You know what I mean?
California.
Like, yeah, totally. And whether people like Dallas or Johnny Mountain, which was the greatest. I mean,
was that a real name? Johnny Mountain?
I think it was.
I like that.
Who makes this stuff up? Name. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm going to go with Dallas Rains and Johnny Mountain were the ones I remembered. Those are incredible weather names.
We need good podcast names.
Ooh, that's a great idea. The other thing is, Tim, did you invest in GameStop at all?
I did not.
Okay, me neither. Missed that train entirely.
I do love it. I think it's exposed a lot in our country and has made a very interesting conversation about capitalism and stock markets.
The disruptions provoked. I mean, at first it was Airbnb disrupting the hotel industry and Uber and Lyft disrupting the taxi industry, but now, I mean, short sales and hedge funds. I mean this is what they do. Short squeezes, which is what these Reddit investors did. That's super common.
Yeah.
Right. But when apps controlled by hedge funds have to shut down because small investors are actually working together, I love it. This is a whole new day. And when the app in question is named Robinhood.
Yeah. You're in straight Dallas Rains territory.
Yes.
It's too perfect.
It is. You can't. Who could have made this up?
That's everything right now. It's such a weird time period where if you're going to look back in the history books and people are going to be like, none of this is true. A Robinhood app?
Totally.
Stole money from the rich people? That's odd.
Oh. So anyway, there's our banter.
There it is. Done. All right. Let's talk about judgment.
Ashley is going to read. Another Canadian angel is going to read our text today from Matthew 7. We're actually in the last chapter of the Sermon on the Mount, ladies and gentlemen, arriving to the grand finale. But this one, oh man, this is good stuff. So, Ashley, take it away.
Hi, this is Ashley, and I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm reading from Matthew 7, 1-6. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, "Let me take the speck out of your eye," when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First, take the plank out of your own eye, And then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's not just the African angels that you need to look out for, a Paula White reference for those of you, but you need to pay attention to the Canadian angels, because when they read as the voice of God. This judgment text, dang. Hey. So we got a lot to talk about, all right?
Yep.
So buckle up, Timothy.
I'm buckled.
Yes. So
my loins are girded.
Do not judge, or you will be judged. Now, the Greek word judge here is the word krino. The word krino originally meant to separate. It's where we get the word critical or critique or criticize. All right, so to separate something is from good and bad or right and wrong, to be able to categorize and label. I mean, that's what it means to exercise krino. Now, in the parallel passage in the book of Luke, Luke has Jesus saying, "Do not judge, or you will be judged. Do not condemn, or you will be condemned." So there's a specific kind of judgment that I think Jesus has in mind, and I think there's a good judgment that Jesus has in mind, but he's not referring to here. So we're going to distinguish between good krino and bad krino. All right? Good judgment and bad judgment. And we're going to deal with the bad judgment first. Right? In the Luke passage, when he says, do not judge or you will be judged, do not condemn, that's parallelism. So he's ruling out the kind of judgment that leads to condemnation, or better said, the kind of judgment that is judgment between peoples. So we are given great permission to judge things, right? Is this thing, way of life, this belief, is this helpful or not helpful? What we're not given permission to do is to separate people based upon our judgments of them into good, bad, orthodox, heretic, right, wrong, whatever. Does that distinction make sense?
Totally.
So the bad krino is separating people into categories of heroic or villainous, praiseworthy or condemnation worthy. This kind of judgment is the kind of judgment that leads us to condemn each other. And the scriptures, oddly enough, in lots of different places, have a lot to say about this. But one of the biggest things it has to say about this is the picture in Genesis of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And there's all sorts of debate, about what that symbolizes and what that represents. Right. But there is I think a decent case to be made that is a tree of judgment where we become arbiters of good and evil based upon our own self-serving ideas of good and evil. And if that understanding is true, then one of the things that follows is the idea that when I separate people into good and bad categories, right, this bad form of condemnation, this bad form of krino, I receive a hit. I receive a bit of life. I receive a bit of fullness. I receive a bit of self-righteousness. It's the idea, of course, is that we were to live in such intimate relationship with God, and that God defined good and evil. We did not have to experience good and evil to know it. Once I've experienced good and evil, one of the ways, and I'm cut off from the source of life that is God, one of the ways I begin to find life in my fallenness is by condemning others, right? And we all know this, that if you want to lift yourself up, you put other people down. If you want to make sure no one's getting ahead of you, you subtly kind of undercut them. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that we do this. But the idea, and I think this is really important when we talk about judgment, is that I get something from categorizing people. I benefit. There's a hit, there's a piece of fullness, there's just a piece of life that comes when I see something that's so obviously horrible on the internet, and I jump in with both feet with absolute moral clarity And obviously there's a place for that. We're going to talk about the place in a second, but let's talk about the judgment that condemns, right? Because what I want to do is I want to look at what someone has said or what someone has done, and I want to make a judgment about the part of them I can't see, namely their worth, their value, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the move that Scripture outlaws. That move from observing someone's speech or tweet or action and then making a judgment about who they are as a person. That's the bit that's the condemnation. That's the bad crino. That's where I'm separating people into idiots and losers and into the people that agree with me. All right? Yeah. And the first big point is that I get life from doing that. There's a reason why outrage is helpful, right? It's fuel. It's doing something. And there's a deep psychosis in us that benefits from this sort of self-righteousness, right? And we're all guilty of that. But we just need to call that out as we begin. The idea that we're not just neutral observers. we actually exercise judgment in ways that benefit us always. Yeah. Yeah. Right? So the idea that this bad sort of crino is ruled out, it's ruled out because, and these are no duh statements, but implied in Jesus's teaching is I'm not in a position of superiority over another person. Number two, I'm not God. Number three, I don't know their story. I mean, how many times and examples have we heard of where you make a judgment about someone and then you learn their backstory? Right. And then you're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that's what was going on. Yeah. And you have to totally revise your judgment based upon new information. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And I've had to do that so many times. And I plead, when I'm being judged, I plead for that. I'm like, guys, mm-hmm. I didn't mean that. I didn't intend that. That's not who I am, right? Those are the things we say when we're judged. And so our judgments, big point number one, our judgments are always self-serving. And we always get a hit from them, right? Big point number two is that we ourselves are guilty of everything we're judging others for. And that's where Jesus gets into this log and speck thing. And this is one of the least practiced teachings, probably next to love your enemy, in Christian circles. So why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out, and then you'll be able to see to remove the speck. Now, if you're a church person at all, you've heard this, but very rarely is this sucker practiced. We ourselves are in need of judgment. And so this is what Jesus says. This is why he says, for in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. So there is a place for good crino, right? Bad crino is the separating of people into worthy, unworthy, right? And the categorizing of people. There is a good crino. When Jesus is going to talk about pearls and swine, there's a good crino, but that is a separation of things into wise, unwise, right? True, false, good, bad. But that's not condemnation against individuals. That is this helpful or not helpful, right? Is this something that's beneficial or not? Right. And when we see something in an image bearer that is not helpful to them, if we are going to use a standard of judgment, that judgment first has to be applied to us. That's what Jesus is saying. Whatever standard you're going to use. So I see someone's unhelpful tweet, and I grow agitated and irritated and angry and furious at the tweet. Here, the idea is that I myself, I have to judge myself using that same standard, right? Before I'm in a place to, in any way, shape, or form, gently and helpfully confront somebody else. Totally. Oof. Now, Notice in Jesus' log and speck example, there still really is a speck in your brother's eye.
Totally.
And you have a responsibility in certain circumstances, all right, to identify and help somebody see the speck in their own eye. But the only way you get there is taking the judgment you're using, even in the good sense, and applying it to yourself first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Makes sense so far.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day with talking to somebody about the way they were treating and speaking to their wife, and this doing the self-check at home for the way in which it feels healthy, I think, is the long and short of that.
Yes. The bad judgment cuts us off from relationship.
Totally.
Right? It removes everything at the sacrifice of being correct, at the altar of being right. The good kind of judgment is the kind of judgment, and I've experienced this, where people go, dude, this is really a blind spot. And the reason I can recognize it is because I have that blind spot too. And it's been pointed out in me. Those are such different conversations.
Yeah.
All right. So good crino and bad crino. Do not judge or you will be judged, right? Whatever standard you're going to use, well, that standard's going to boomerang on you. Awesome. So the implication of that teaching then is that I cannot go talk about a speck in someone else's eye without dealing with the log in mine.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the negative teaching. The positive teaching is the pearls and swine thing, and we'll get to that next week, because that's a whole other can of worms. But for now, we just want to say, okay, is there a place then, because the natural question is, okay, so if there's a good kind of crino, right, where there are specks of sawdust in each other's eyes, how and when do you practice it? Because I think what Jesus and Paul would say is that good kind of crino is not just allowed, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you have in the scriptures all over the place, particularly in Paul's pastoral letters, him separating. This is not everything. You say everything is beneficial, but I'm telling you not everything is beneficial. Yeah. You say you can do all things, but I'm saying not everything is wise, right? He's in the book of Hebrews, we're told there are certain kinds of teaching that are milk versus the solid food of more thick, robust kinds of teaching, right? So we have to be able to distinguish between the good, bad, the right, wrong, the wise or unwise. And the scriptures call us to do this in a process of discernment. When it involves other people, however, the biblical teaching is really, really interesting. All right, so first, we're given the context. Who is it that we are to discern with? So let's call the good crino discernment, and let's call the bad crino judgment. Perfect. Even though you can translate the word judgment. Let's distinguish it so I don't have to keep saying bad crino and good crino. Let's say the bad one is judgment and the good one is discernment.
Discernment. Perfect.
Judgment is the separation of people and the condemnation of people. Discernment is the separation and critique of things, right? Ways of life, actions, words, and so on, without going that extra step into the condemnation of the person. So the context of this. So first, who does the church exercise discernment with first and foremost? Timothy.
Their community.
Yes.
Right?
Let it be known that Tim is making a gesture with his hands.
Yep.
That is a communal gesture, right? So judgment, according to Peter, begins with the house of God.
Yeah.
And Paul even says this, and this is one of the least practiced teachings of Paul. Who am I to judge those outside the church? I judge those inside. Right? There is this strand of Christian baloney, and I use that in the good crino sense, that somehow expects that non-Jesus people should act and think like Jesus people.
Right.
And so one of the things we've always insisted on is that, hey, what if we just expect Christians to act like Christians and non-Christians to act like non-Christians? Let's just start there, right? So we're not creanoing non-Christians, right? The church doesn't sit in judgment over the world and just critique the world into sheep and goats or right and wrong. That the whole thing, even in the discernment level, starts and begins with the people of God, right? That totally makes sense. If Jesus says, hey, discernment begins with you.
Yeah.
You take that level, that standard of discernment, and apply it to yourself first, then you can talk to somebody else. Well, that would make sense on a corporate level too. Right? So the first place it happens, and the most important place it happens, is the prophetic critique of the church by the church.
Yeah.
Right? So unity, whatever unity means, can't mean the church never calls itself out. No, it has to. It has to. No, maybe it does too much. I would argue maybe it doesn't enough. But, that's a very interesting conversation in other places.
Yeah.
So, with whom do we discern? Well, we discern within the people of God. Where do we discern with each other? Well, the churches that Paul was writing to were 20 people meeting in a house. In some cases, in the Jerusalem church, they were meeting every day. These were not random people online. These were people that you were, in a manner of speaking, you were on the inside of their life.
Yeah, you were living with them.
Yes.
Living in the, not just in the house, but the communal sense, living life together.
Yes. There was, let the record show, there was no gesture there.
Lots of mental gestures.
Yes, that's exactly right. So you're on the inside of people, in the inside of their lives, and you are doing life kind of with them, to use a Christian phrase. And so, people have critiqued me for years, rightly and wrongly, but the critiques that are always the best ones and the most powerful ones they come from the people who know me and love me.
Yeah.
So I'll get, hey, I have a word from God for you. I mean, I used to get this a ton when I was like a big time pastor. And I would always be terrified of those. 'Cause like, what if this is true? And then a friend of mine was just like, if God wants to speak to you, he's got plenty of people closer to you.
Interesting.
Who will speak to you. And so I was kind of free from, but the people who are close, who then, if you're healthy enough to have given them real permission to critique, in the best sense, man, those are the ones you really pay attention to.
Yeah.
And so unless I've been invited on the inside of another Christian's life, or unless they are a public figure making public statements about Christianity in general, I'm not given a lot of permission to even exercise the good discernment, right? But if it's a pastor preaching a sermon or a theologian tweeting a tweet, I think there are cases with social media now where I don't have to follow the Matthew sort of 18, like keep it internal rules to be able to object to certain things that people are saying. Where I get into trouble is that I begin, and this is my sin, is I want to judge the judgers. And it's impossible to do that without becoming one of them.
Right.
So the people who really make me mad are the people who are closing the doors of the kingdom to people by making Jesus ugly, or by confusing Jesus with Christian nationalism or white supremacy or capitalism or American Jesus or whatever, right? I get really fired up about that stuff. And by Paul's example, that stuff is worth getting fired up about. The issue is I take it too far and then begin to make judgments about the people who hold those views, rather than going to war against the view itself.
Totally.
Tell us more about that, Tim. Tell us more about your judgments. No,
I judge often, all day long.
And we get life. We get life from that.
Yeah, it makes me feel like I'm correct or superior in my
Yep.
in my little world of thinking.
And we have to also be careful of our discernments with each other, because God doesn't deal with everything in our lives all at once. Right? I don't have the right to order someone's discipleship unless they've given me that right.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I look at how God has worked in my life towards any kind of maturity, and it was never, hey, let's tackle all of this at once. It was, right? It was surround me with people who've lived a better way.
Yeah.
Some of them would say, hey, have you considered living this better way in this area of your life? And regardless of whether or not I said yes to that, they were still with me and committed to me.
Well, I mean, that has been such a fault of Christian thinking for so long, is I think that we take that like turn away from sin idea as a it's just kind of preached and yelled at people as a version of like, once you turn, it's over. Like you just turn and be done. And we've just learned so much that it's like, you turn, then we're going to walk together for a long time. And there may be moments where we have to keep turning back towards.
Totally.
Which makes sense in a community and not in a large thing where you're
that's right.
Just an unheard voice or an unseen face. But when I think about like our little Vox team and how different each of the people are that are involved in the conversation with us,
right?
They're all really, really different. So that discernment, each person brings a very specific thing that I don't have. And so it broadens my discernment so much, because I hear, these individual, personal, brilliant, flawed, awesome folks that are, bringing a lens that I don't have. And that just makes sense. If I was discerning just through my own thing, it'd be terrible.
Yes. And that's what narcissism does.
Totally.
As a recovering, perhaps, narcissist, I think I'm the best discerner in the room.
Totally. And I do think that about myself.
So the growth for me has been being, because I've never trusted people. I didn't know. I kept everyone at a distance. I thought I was a great friend or whatever, but trusting people enough to give them power to discern in my life.
That's really scary.
Oh man, that is scary. Because there's a lot that needs to be worked on. Let's just be honest. But yes, so all the more reason why the modern church model can often be harmful.
Yes.
Is that the head of the church is not given permission to be in process or sinful.
Yeah.
Or they can be sinful in kind of an abstract sort of way, but nothing too specific.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. It's been a huge flaw.
Yes. So what you guys enabled was, I can be specifically sinful and be loved, and have that discerned as out of bounds and in need of correction significantly, but then not cast aside as unworthy. Because what our shame does is for those of us living under a shame story, we're just like, yeah, I deserve this. I totally deserve this.
Yeah,
so
it's just the flip version of the judgment. Now the judgment isolates you in a narcissistic, what you think is a positive place, and the shame just isolates you and, in a narcissistic negative way.
Right. Exactly. And so isolation on either extreme is death. So I love your point about, I've learned that I can't even Crino rightly by myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people
Which
have
is so easy to do in the social media world, is just sit there and.
Yes, I've had to apologize for things. Right? Totally. So let me recap this just a little bit. Okay? When Jesus says, do not judge, he's not saying, do not make discernments that everything's fair and everything's equally good and everything's equally true and everything's equally beneficial. Nope, not at all. He is saying, though, we're not in a position to condemn. Because we don't have full and complete information, right? There's always a prequel or a backstory. B, we're under judgment ourselves for the same things we're using to judge others. And so if you are going to discern in the good sense, then the log and spec thing is the way to go. Now, how do we discern? Well, this was practiced when Jesus gives the instructions of Matthew 18 about going to the person by yourself and then go to the person with two other people and then let it be known to the church. This was being practiced in houses of a dozen or 20 people. This was not megachurch practice. And the assumption is that you were one anothering each other in those communities all over the place. So this was a community that was already defined by forgiveness, comforting one another, carrying each other's burdens, so on, so on, so on. And then if you were going to discern, there was a process you did before you discerned, which was you use that same standard against yourself. And I found it very powerful. If I'm going to talk to somebody about something I'm seeing, to just lead with the admission that, well, I only recognize it because I've seen it in myself. Right?
Yeah.
Very rarely are we able to point things out in others. Now, obviously, murder. I can point out murder without having murdered.
Right.
But some of the more subtle things of pride or ego or whatever, those I have great experience with.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is this in any way riffing or relating to the light and heavy?
Oh, I think it is.
Because it feels that when I was reading it, it feels that way where it's like you don't call it the light without looking at the heavy.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? To that,
Yep.
there's there seems to be a playful thing or a congruent idea in there of, but I don't know if I made that up.
No, Tim, I think that's really insightful. Because what are you judging? You're judging the commands when you make some heavy and some light. Right?
Yeah.
And so who is again eating from the knowledge of the tree and good and evil? I am.
Right.
Now, I do think the commands themselves commend themselves as light and heavy. So I don't think that was a complete fabrication, because there are circumstances where they will contradict each other, and you have to make a determination. No question about that. But the practice, the rightness of the Pharisees was mislabeling these, misappropriating these, or only practicing thinking that you would met the heart of the heavy ones by just practicing their extreme application. So I don't have to worry about anger because I haven't murdered. I don't worry about lust because I haven't had adultery. And you say, no, the new rightness is actually internal, and it's secret. It's not public. And it has to do with the renovation of you first, as a part of the greater community. And the renovation of you can only happen in community, by the way. Right? The krino, that's even the good one, can only happen together.
Right.
So, my friends, another implication. That was a great question, Tim. And that thread is still throughout the sermon. Yeah. I get how it feels like a bunch of different random teaching, but I think there's, and it could have been this is a summary of 3 different sermons, or this was one sermon one day and everyone's going, my goodness, my mind is blown. Because we have
the
examples.
Structures all feel really congruent. That's why I've been trying to hold, and I'm glad that you did the full recap. I don't know if that was last episode, that it's helpful to, because regardless of if this was, I hope for the people's sake it was maybe in separate sections, but I'm trying really hard to hold all the threads in my head as we push.
Yes. And this is where people will say, the point of the sermon then is to make you feel like you'll never measure up. It drives you to Christ as Savior because his demands as Lord are unmeetable.
Interesting.
And that was one of the first conversations we had about the Sermon on the Mount, people will say,
Yeah.
no, he doesn't expect us to obey this. This is to show us how the kind of rightness that Christ insists on, and that can only be given as a gift, right? When you receive Jesus and his righteousness. And I think there's some truth maybe there, but when Jesus ends this sermon without Paul saying, hey, the people who put this into practice are like people who built on rock.
Right.
I think he means us to do this.
Yeah.
So,
Or else he's just standing up there basically judging everybody and telling them that they don't.
right.
It's just like, don't even try, you ding dongs.
So, yes. And again, ding dong, a very heavy accusation, very heavy word. Now, the pushback, or no, not, we won't even get to pushback yet, but one of the questions this whole thing raises, and it's one of the ways I think my Christian upbringing was deficient, is that the invitation, and we've talked about this before, the invitation of the Bible and of the Spirit and of the community is to be a community of discernment. All right, so let's say we forsake judgment, but we're still called to discern. And a lot of people want to punt discernment to Christian subculture. So if something is labeled Christian, I can trust it. And if something's non-Christian, I can't. And that creates a whole host of errors, because there's a lot of worship, not a lot, I shouldn't say a lot, but there's some worship lyrics that probably aren't true or Christian. And there's some, quote, secular lyrics that are more Christian than their Christian counterparts, right? And so confusing what it means to actually discern, even in the good sense, leads us to all sorts of weird places, right? So we created a Christian subculture that if you put a fish on it, the Christian is now an adjective and not a noun, right? So we Christianized things.
Yeah.
Right? We began to separate things into Christian or non-Christian. And interestingly, the Bible doesn't do that. Certainly it separates things into obedience or not obedience, idolatry or to true worship, beneficial or to not beneficial, wise or foolish, certainly. But the followers of the way that were the first Christians would have never imagined things being labeled Christian in the ways that we've ended up labeling them. So let's have just a very quick conversation about discernment. Shall we? Shall we, Timothy?
We shall.
So if condemnation is ruled out, right, we're not allowed to condemn each other or sit in condemnation of the world, but we're invited to discern. How do we practice discernment? Well, we've just said. But you and I are immersed in a culture that judges all the time. Yep, cancel culture, whatever else. And we're immersed in a culture where discernment is needed, and it would be very, very easily just to trust labels. The problem is the Bible doesn't admit to such a simplistic way of engaging the world.
Yeah.
And even the word world is used in 3 different senses, right? So you'll hear things like, God so loved the world.
Right.
Well, that's referring to the inhabited planet, Earth, the people of the world.
Yeah.
We are the world in that sense, right? To quote some sweet 80s lyrics. But then you'll have, like in James, do not be friends. Anyone who loves the world, right, is not of God. But God loves the world. And so another sense, the word world means the ordered system of human priority and value that's hostile to God. And in that sense, we're to be in the world but not of it. Right? Makes sense?
Yeah.
And then God made the world. Just that means they created order.
Yeah.
The earth. So it can mean the earth, the inhabited earth, or the ordered system that is opposed to God.
Yeah.
So if something in culture is in the world, we have to discern what it is, because it can be neutral, right? Whether or not I go to Baskin Robbins is a neutral decision. Well, unless you're somebody who eats too much ice cream. But I mean, morally, there's no like discernment required, whether or not it's Christian or not to eat at Baskin Robbins, right? There's just some parts of culture that are neutral. Obviously, there are parts of culture that need to be rejected, and clearly, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, Paul will write, right? So there he's referring to the ordered system of flesh opposed to God. Well, of course, but it doesn't admit to a nice simplistic labeling system, is my point. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so the Christian trinket industry has done a great disservice to our abilities to discern. I remember back, this was 15 years ago. Some of you won't even know this ever happened, but there was this big scandal about something called the emergent church. And it was all of us Gen Xers who were saying, hey, maybe there's some ways that we can be thinking about church that aren't reflected in our boomer forefathers. And I was accused of being in league with these evil people and whatever. And I remember a guy who came up one day and he asked me, hey, is the emergent church bad or is it good? And I said, yes, it's both. And he literally said to me, I don't want that answer. Just tell me if it's good or bad. And I thought that is exactly what we yearn for when we start having Christian radio stations and Christian films and Christian whatever. Right? There's a lot of false crap in Christian movies and in Christian music. And there's a lot of true crap in non-Christian films and music. So even when we're practicing Kreno, it doesn't admit to a very simplistic, categorization of Christian or non-Christian. Because I think some people will hear, oh, good, there's a good Kreno and we're discerning good and bad, right and wrong. Well, that's easy. If it's Christian, it's good. If it's non-Christian, it's bad. And I just want to bang away at the idea that no. The Bible admits to no reduction in that way. In fact, you have Paul quoting, poets and prophets who were worshiping Zeus. That's in your inspired Bible. Jude quotes a non-canonical book called The Assumption of Moses. Yeah. In his book. You have instances where, Timothy is told, dude, drink some wine for your stomach, man. Come on. Illness isn't just explained away as some sort of spiritual malaise, but it's actually considered like to be a real thing. And that physicians, Luke was a physician, and and somewhere along the line, a substrand of Christian thought has kind of come to us and said, no, you can't be worldly. And by worldly, we just mean anything secular or non-Christian. And we just want to say, no, the Bible doesn't operate according to those categories, right? Because of nature and because of general revelation and because of common grace, there are many things that aren't labeled Christians that are Christian that are true and good and beautiful and should be used and captured and enjoyed. And there are many things, as we've said before, that carry the label that aren't worthy of it. And so we sit in this text with several very difficult implications. The first one is I have to rummage through all of the ways that I condemn. And I do it subtly and quickly and not even thinking about it. Right? So I take a tweet and like the Sean guy that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Right? What's his name? Sean begins
Sean
with an
Fleet.
F. Yes. I'm not a fan of that guy.
Right. No?
And what I want to do is, because I'm not a fan of what he's doing and what I think he represents, I want to condemn him and put him in a category where I wouldn't love him as a neighbor. You know what I mean? and because I heartily disapprove of what he's doing. So
Some people make it very difficult to practice this really well.
yeah, oh, absolutely. And I'm not saying all I know to do with people like that is I pray. God, I pray you'd bless them.
Well, I think it's interesting. So earlier when we're in this section and we're talking about like the turn the other cheek, right?
Yeah.
Not just laying down and offering, but what all the implications that brought forth of like the being backhanded, but then saying you can hit me again, but you're going to hit me with the open hand. And I see some of these things like that where it's hard because the Foyt stuff, like it's a conversation that becomes agitated really quickly with people.
Yeah.
And then, when he releases shirts that say Jesus is a super spreader to just...
Yep. And promotes his worship album.
Yeah, to egg on the dispute, you get into that's where the discernment really, like, it gets really finite and really, like, you really have to be...
Yeah, but we can go to
through.
war on that. But we can go to war.
I know, but I mean, like, with what you're saying about, like, not... Like, it's easiest to just be like, he's wrong, therefore I'm going to attack him. And
right.
But as the thing moves forward, it's just so organic and so much more three-dimensional than it is just black and white. Like, does that make? Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Because you have to. That conversation is long. It becomes long, and then because of that discernment practice is like, it's an ongoing muscle.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Because what can happen is that I become so energized against that person that I begin to receive life from my self-righteousness and condemnation of them, right?
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is...
Which sounds so simple, which I feel like people can just be like, oh yeah, obviously. But
no,
here we are.
This is the most insidious thing ever, and social media does nothing except encourage it and facilitate it, right? I mean, I have to be so careful. And so we're left with a very challenging word from Jesus on this. Okay, great. Let's say you're going to judge people then. Just apply the same standard to yourself.
Yeah.
Great. When have you been an idiot? Well, I can happen to think of lots of different times and ways. So if you're going to have a conversation with Mr. Sean, let's just admit to those first.
Right.
But Paul certainly, I mean, he goes after Peter and is like, dude, you are contradicting the gospel.
Right.
I mean, we can go after each other. Absolutely. And this is a case where we should, I think you're absolutely right. It makes Jesus ugly. It totally goes against what loving our neighbor means. It's promoting a brand. I cannot stand it. So I discern that. You're right to say, well, the next step is then the easiest step and the one that Jesus rules out. He's an idiot. Right? I don't get to make that judgment.
Yeah.
And so when I want to, if I'm healthy and in my right mind, the only way I battle that is just I honor them as an image bearer and pray for God's blessing upon them.
Yeah, it's been an interesting, like, all the time that I spent in the prison in LA, not as an inmate, but
I was going to say, I think you might want to clarify.
But when you're sitting, I was working with guys that were all serving life without parole, and that, so there's heinous crimes involved with that. But when you're spending time with the individuals and having really long conversations and learning their histories and their stories and watching them wrestle against choices and lack of discernment and that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's just humanity is just so much more complicated than two categories.
I went to this place in Nashville called Onsite about a year ago. And it's a therapeutic kind of retreat center. I was there for 6.5 days with a group of guys. And the first thing we did was we told each other why we were there. And some of the stuff that was being shared was, the sin levels are at a 10. I mean, there aren't bigger sins than these. You know what I mean? It's like, I was horrified. I'm thinking to myself, I do not belong here. Which is the great lie. And then the next thing we did is we began sharing our backstories.
Yeah.
And, you have confidentiality, of course, so I can't share anything except to say that the amount of abuse and neglect and violence done to these men.
Right.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked there hasn't been worse. I mean, it is, you just sit there and you're like, oh my gosh, how could I, it makes total sense why they would do what they do.
Well, it makes it really interesting with Matthew 25 that, visiting people in prison is lumped in with the poor, and
yes,
so it is a much more nuanced conversation than just like,
because guess what you realize? Oh, there's not a big line separating me from you. Right?
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden there's just massive amounts of compassion, and condemnation shuts us off from all of that. All of it. All of reconciliation and all of forgiveness and peacemaking. Condemnation shuts us off from all of it.
Yeah.
And I think as kingdom people, this is a war that just simply will have to be fought over and over and over again, particularly as our culture goes crazy and is insane with polarization right now. So first of all, he rules out condemning. Secondly, he says there is a good kind of discernment that you have to do. And if you're ever going to do it, you have to do it to yourself first with the same standard you're going to use on anybody else. Yeah. So if I'm going to go confront somebody on sexual sin, guess what I got to do first? Right? And then the context is, well, I'm not sitting around and expecting believers to act like non-believers. Right. I'm expecting Christians to act like Christians and non-Christians to act like non-Christians. So I'm not sitting in judgment of the world. No, if we're going to practice discernment, it's to those who've said publicly, yeah, I want to live under this teaching of Jesus.
Yeah.
And even then, it's when you're invited on the inside of their lives. And even then, it's done gently, Paul says, to avoid tripping yourself up in that same direction. Now, if we became a community like that, now we're cooking.
Be fascinating.
And then even then, we don't get the opportunity because some parts of culture aren't obviously horrific. We don't get the opportunity just to label things Christian and non-Christian and be done with it.
Yeah.
Right? We test everything. Now, Paul's using that to talk about prophecies in the church.
Right.
But think about that. Test everything. So people who are coming up and prophesying, test that crap.
Yes.
Is what he's saying.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There was a guy that I was just watching a clip from that prophesied. He was in Africa and he prophesied over this African man and said, you're going to do these great things in the name of the Lord and blah, 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 blah. I was just saying all this stuff. And then the guy died the next week, the one he was prophesying over. And so the whole village was like, hey, what happened? You came in here and said this was, and he's like, my prophecy was absolutely accurate. Satan stole him from this. And it's just a really interesting.
Oh, you get to all the people that prophesied Trump's second term are really doing some fascinating gymnastics.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think the stuff with art I just think is so interesting. Like looking at the poets and artists and different things from the time and seeing, like discerning that, but understanding the depths of people and the way humanity works. Like teaching creative writing right now, and I was talking to the kids about Andy Warhol because I didn't understand Andy Warhol's art ever. I didn't. It was like early Photoshop or something. You know, I didn't get it. And then I was finally like, when it clicked, and I was listening to him talk about it, like his famous picture of a can of soup.
Yeah.
And how that art's purpose is to help people pause and look at something in a new way. Because we don't do that with anything. We don't take the time to really like see something for what all the complexities of what it could be. And art does that, and music does that. And the more that we dumb it down or don't allow, I just think it's an interesting thing to look at. That there can be this truth in art that we can learn a lot from, and understanding the people that we are living amongst,
and that we are. I mean, good Lord, where is this? Like, we cease being human when we become Christian. So I'm sorry, I can't relate to your despair.
That's what's hard for me as a Enneagram 4 or whatever. Like, that's a way I process everything. And so when those things get demonized or tossed out, I flounder. And I can't, like, that was the project that I did with that's how I processed my time working with the guys in the prison. Was I wrote that record using a bunch of their narratives and their stories, because that's how I process.
Yeah.
That's all I could do to go through that information. And so
Did you, how many times did you say the word Jesus on that album?
0.
Well, then
no,
it's not
1.
Christian. Was it used?
I know, it's really interesting.
Was it a cursing sense?
No, like 2 of the guys, 3 of the songs are not about people who found Jesus, because I wasn't in there for ministry reasons. I was in there for educational purposes. But the 2 of the guys that I wrote about did find faith in prison, and so their journey is really fascinating, and where it comes from gang life and murder at a young age to reconciling their choices and the things that they did, the world that they grew up in, and then where they were and who Jesus was in that. And that's a really fascinating arc, and it's a very human one, which I think Jesus is obviously very invested in the mess of humanity. And just his movement. Look at his freaking movement. It's nothing but cast-offs and misfits. And here's the woman that's been, had 7 demons cast out of her. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, come on. His movement looked like a first century AA meeting.
Oh man, I've thought about AA so much through this series. I have, because I think it's such an interesting.
Yeah, you want to meet the poor in spirit, go to an AA meeting or go to an SA meeting.
The poor in spirit who are working hard on everything, like not just sitting in it.
Yep. All right. Well, now that we've solved it.
You're welcome.
Yes. Hey, Vox. You guys are awesome. Oh, come here, Seth. We haven't had a Seth interruption. Come here. This is for the podcast.
Yes.
All right. So say, hey, everybody.
Hey, buddy.
It's Seth.
It's Seth.
And I'm 12.
I'm 12.
And I'm awesome.
I'm awesome.
And Daddy Mike is awesome.
Yep.
I want you to say that.
We are. Daddy Mike is we are shred quarters.
Yeah, we're the shred quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shred quarters. .com. Exactly. He's found a YouTube channel of this dad and his son, and the dad owns a skateboard company, and they call it the Shred Quarters.
That's genius.
So
see,
that's
inspiration in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, Seth Erre, how are you?
I 9.
You're 9?
Yeah.
Nope. I think you're 12.
Yeah, please 12.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad we got that clear. All right, do you want to say goodbye to everybody? Let's do a blessing for the Vox people. All right, let's tell them goodbye.
Goodbye, people. Say
goodbye, people.
And say thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So proud of you, Fox.
So proud of you.
Fox Podcast.
Fox Podcast.
Tim
Stafford and Bonnie.
With those, it's ColumbusOhio.com. ColumbusOhio.com.
ColumbusOhio.com. Check it out.
What's up? Tuesdays, for Tennessee.com.
Yeah, Tennessee.com too. So we got to check out
Oh.
Tennessee.com. Well done, my son. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. I can't say any better than that. That is awesome. So, friends, we will pick up, unless something horrific happens, we will pick up the next section of the Sermon on the Mount next week. It will be glorious. Any last thoughts,
Glorious.
Timothy?
Nope.
Wow. And again, on that, we will close. Thank you guys so much for allowing us to be part of your life. We greatly enjoy it and are honored by it. And so until next time, friends.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. The Vox Podcast is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is supported by listeners like yourself. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Vox Podcast. You can also engage with the hosts on social media at facebook.com/Vox Podcast, on Instagram at Vox Podcast, and on Twitter at Mike Erre. Thank you for walking this road with us.